Do you think I'm spooky?
Be afraid. Be very afraid. What have you done to its eyes?
Good evening, and welcome to Soft and Spooky. For today's video, I'm going to be going over part 2 of my rankings on the American Horror Story intros. For this video, I'm going to be going through seasons 7 through 10, and if you missed the first 6 seasons that I ranked, I'm going to go ahead and link that video up above here. I also in that video go over like the explanations of the tiers, so if you missed that one, it's kind of important, so definitely watch that one first. But yeah, without further ado, let's sink our teeth in. Alright, so we are back with season 7, which is Cult. Okay, so for this one, they definitely are playing up on people's fears. Like, we have bugs, trypophobia, clowns, and my personal fear, which is wasting water. Like, damn, dude, you can turn off the faucet. That's so much water. I feel like the color grading, they really bumped it up, like with the greenish hue, and I feel like it being combined with the subject matter just really adds to this like griminess, and it's just nasty. For the music, they also switched it up again and kind of put a nice little spin on it where there's this heavy incorporation of like horns, and it adds like a lot of fanfare to it. Yeah, I found this intro theme song to be really impressive. It just sounded really good. And that's kind of pretty much all I have nice to say about this intro, because I don't know, this one was not doing it for me. Again, with the clowns. I feel like it's been several intros that we've included clowns, and like, I get that this actually pertains to what happens in the season, but I'm sick of it. I don't want to see clowns anymore. Like, I'm not even scared of them, but I'd rather see something spooky new rather than retreading on the same creepy go-tos, you know? I will say the part where somebody puts on a Trump mask and then like whips their head to camera, I feel like that was unintentionally hilarious. It reminds me a lot of that like prairie dog video in like OG YouTube. Lastly, I feel like my biggest criticism of this was it's like they were trying to do way too much with the one season. Like, we have those phobias that I mentioned before, and then there's also like gas canisters, and then there's political figures and a carousel, and I felt like I think they should have found one theme and really stuck to it, and it sort of felt like it lacked focus, and I didn't really know what exact theming they were trying to go for the specific intro. So with all that said, even though I love the song, I think I might rank this one as I don't want a cupcake. Gosh, if you didn't watch the first video, that's gonna be such a weird thing to experience. Moving on, we have season 8, which is a connection of previous seasons in Apocalypse. Since this one is connecting a lot of previous seasons and incorporating them, I will somewhat give it a pass for reusing some of the same visuals from previous intros. At least this kind of makes sense within the context of the season, because like this is the main crossover season. For the new elements, I think some of them really looked good to me. Like, my personal favorite is that shot of the shadow children with like those glowing eyes, and then there's a mushroom cloud in the back. That gave me like very vintage horror, kind of like Village of the Damned with those little glowy-eyed children. That's kind of like what it reminded me of, so I actually really liked that shot. Some more vintage imagery that they incorporated were these like old school depictions of demons and devils like you would see in a book, and I felt like that was a really nice stylistic choice. I think those look pretty cool. Same thing with the titles themselves. They kind of increased like the aberration on it. So it's like this distortion around the letters. And I think that looked really nice. Kind of gave it that old school photo feel. So yeah, I liked it. There were a couple things that like kind of have me scratching my head. Like, it's been a while since I've seen this season, but I don't get why there's a microscope superimposed over houses. Like, what is that? I did like the schematics kind of imposed over the skulls, but again, I kind of don't really know what it's supposed to signify, but I did like it. Also, their candle and snake budget must have been through the roof for this one, because there's just so many clips of like melting candles or like candles being blown out, and then snakes. So many snakes. I think I'm gonna rank this one at normal people scare me, just because for a season called Apocalypse, I was really expecting like super intense visuals where it's depicting the end of days, and I don't know, I feel like they could have played with it more or do more shots like the Shadow Children. I loved that. And maybe just swap out some of, like, there were so many reused visuals that like we could just take some of those out and put something new and more interesting in there. So it's not bad, but it does kind of feel phoned in for this one. All right, and now we are moving on to season 9, which is 1984. So for this season, they really leaned into the 1980s aesthetics, and we got a heavy synth edition of the theme song. It's so weird. Right at the beginning of the song, I think when they do those kind of like do, 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 like the very initial notes of the song, I keep thinking that it's going to be Whiplash by Theophilus London. Theophilus London? Oh shit, I should have looked this up. It's so weird. I always expect that's what I'm about to hear, and I don't know why. Honestly, I'm going to say this is my favorite iteration of the theme song. It slaps so hard. Like, and it still maintains its heart from like the original song, but it just adds so much different flavor to it. What really makes it stand out too is that there's this awesome like climax to the song. It gets me so pumped, and when I watch this season, I never skip the intro because I loved the way that this song just made me excited to watch the episodes. Stylistically, I feel like this is the most strict they've ever had the visuals, where it all maintains the exact same theme of looking like a product of the 80s. There are these objectively bad looking blood splatters, and then there's this low camera quality footage of like axes being dragged across wooden floors and then a wooden door closing, and it doesn't look like great, but it perfectly sells that that feeling of like old school B horror, or even like a found footage or snuff film, and it just like, that's so good. There's also this sense of like degraded VHS quality, and like I think my favorite shot of the intro was the feet kind of like slow motion swaying out of a car window, and it kind of looked like it was filmed on 35mm, and it looked good. It really sells it. Oh my gosh, the titles too. Oh, those are amazing. I love it. The neon feel to it with like the VHS degrading. It looks so good. Little fun facts. So according to Daily Mail, this intro's visuals were actually inspired by a fan named Corey Vega. So essentially what happened was Corey Vega created this unofficial title sequence for the season before it came out. And I think the creators saw it or found it in some way, and they liked it, and so they ended up taking a lot of the elements from it and adapting it to the storyline of the season. I really recommend checking out Corey's unofficial 1984 title sequence because I actually like it better. I still prefer the song in the official one, but like the visuals that Corey used in his fan-made one looks so dope. Like he did such a good job. I won't linger on it too long, but I did kind of go down a rabbit hole on his channel after reading about that, and I am floored. He has done so many fan edits for American Horror Story, and just like the quality, the creativity that he puts into those videos, and like the cinematography and editing, I am so impressed, and I can't sing enough praises. So definitely check out his channel. I'm gonna link it down below. But yeah, so I personally love this intro even more just because it does have that kind of like heartfelt touch to it that it was inspired by a fan. Overall, the aesthetics, the music, and the homemade feel to it that really captures that era of filmmaking, I have to say this one's going at the top. It's You're All I Want, You're All I Have, because I love this season's intro. Okay, so we are in the final stretch, and we are going into season 10, which has 2 parts, the first of which is called Red Tide. So both of the intros for this season, they do incorporate that like same metal scraping sting at the end like Asylum's intro had. But aside from that, there isn't really, they didn't include the scream, so it is mostly like the original theme. What sets this season aside with the sound is that there is like so much Foley work that was done for this one. So there's like flies buzzing, there's typewriter clicks, there's also this like screech on a violin. And the screech is actually kind of interesting because the way, like the sound quality of it kind of sounds like a seagull, and that also ties into the season. So I think that the heavy use of the Foley was really in their benefit. I think that really added a lot of flavor. Visually, again, this is kind of similar to Asylum, where there's a lot of desaturated tones. What separates it from Asylum, though, is that there is also the incorporation of like high contrast. So we get black pills against a white background. And then we also have these blue and white china plates that have blood splatter on them, and like the blue and the red contrasting together just look really cool. Also, the blood on the plates, along with like the cutting of meat and meat prep that they include, it reminds me a lot of Dexter, that intro that they would use where it was kind of insinuating that it was body parts or like human, but then it's just normal things like cutting up a blood orange, but it looks like blood is juicing from it. I don't know. So I thought that was interesting. This season also like has a lot of restraint from uncomfortable imagery. Like they're not getting too weird with this season, and it's kind of refreshing, but also I feel like this season was incredibly tame for the intro, aside from I think the most goriest thing that we really see is that like bloody face with the fangs. I will say I don't get the worms. I don't know why the worms were included.
The bones are their money, so are the worms.
Like, I don't remember anything in the season pertaining to worms. Unless it's just like fishermen, like fishing because it's Maine. But that's kind of weak. Overall, I feel like this one's hitting like right at the middle ground at Normal People Scare Me, just because it's not a bad intro. There's actually a lot that I do like about it. I think the Foley sounds really just like elevated this. And then I feel like the high contrast images were really aesthetically pleasing. I just wish that we would have gotten a little bit more variety of images, because we got the same things kind of repeated over and over again, and maybe that's to signify like the monotony because there is a typewriter kind of like The Shining, but I don't know. It just, at least this one was very tame, and it kind of gives you a break from all of the previous intros. But yeah, it's coasting. It's not necessarily something that I love or I hate. Okay, friends, so we are at the very last intro for season 10, and this one is Death Valley. I guess I was kind of expecting, after seeing Freak Show, Hotel, Cult, 1984, that we would continue with this trend of kind of making customized versions of the theme song for each season. So, admittedly, I was a little bit disappointed that this one was just straight, you know? For seasons like Apocalypse, that makes sense to me just because it is reconnecting previous seasons, so it would make sense to like keep it the original. But for this one, I thought they were going to do something really fun with it, because they either could have gone like full alien, like very experimental, maybe like kind of robotic sounding, or I don't know, like more theremin inclusion or something. Or they could have gone for the other part of Death Valley where it's very retro, like 50s sounding, and kind of do like a Jeepa Creepa, like kind of give it that vintage feel to it. Am I even making sense right now? I hope so. The visuals. So, yeah. The visuals for this intro, I could not take seriously like from the jump. Like the very first image of like, I think an alien. It reminds me a lot of that Magic School Bus edit.
What's that?
Girl, that's a booty hole.
This intro relies so heavily on CGI, and I just wish that they would have found a way to make those shots practically as opposed to computer generated. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like with their budget, they definitely could have achieved that same shot of the guy getting beamed up with a real person. Like, I think that was doable, and I think it would have looked better. Also, those little ET babies, they just do not do it for me. I feel like they could have used actually something that they utilized in Red Tide, where they did this like kind of medical imaging of like the inside of somebody. They could have done that same thing and created essentially like a sonogram, but showing these like weird kidney bean head babies and showing their little tentacle things. And I feel like that could have gotten the same effect without like looking weird and uncanny. I also have to include a clip that I absolutely hate. It is this one right here. That tentacle plopping down between the legs. And it's so wet and like slimy. How dare you? I don't like that. I mean, like, good job, I guess, because it does make me super uncomfortable, but like, I'm good. That being said, there are two shots that I do like. The first of which is those tentacles that are whipping across the clock. It kind of reminds me of like a cross between John Carpenter's The Thing and the trees in Evil Dead. And then also my favorite was the shot of the car, the abandoned car that is billowing smoke. I like the way that like the head beams are cutting through what looks like it was a fog. They actually did something very creative with the song here. So there's this usual part of the theme song where it cuts to kind of the staticky sound. And in this intro, as that was happening is when the smoke starts to billow out. I don't know, I just found that to be like a really effective choice to bring those two images and the song together. It was nice. All that to say, I am definitely going to be dropping this one down towards the bottom to the I don't want a cupcake tier, because the CGI and the gross visuals, and it's like a lot of the same repeated things and slithering things, and it just, I don't know. I feel like they could have done so much more with this one, and I am ultimately bummed. They were this close to being in Don't Be a Hater, Dear, but that car shot saved them. Okay, the videos are done. This is the end of part 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this tier ranking list of the American Horror Story intros. Definitely leave this video a thumbs up so I know you liked it. And let me know in the comments down below if there were any ones that you would put at a different ranking, because I don't doubt there's differing opinions out there. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so, just because I'm a little baby channel and all of this is coming from the heart, so I hope you guys stick around and help support this channel. But yeah, with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to stay soft and spooky. Bye!